We have breaking news here from the National Football League. According to Ian Rappaport, Browns defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz is walking away. The team tried to bring him back in the fold, but it wasn't to be. One of the top coordinators is now out, as Cleveland will need to fill that important role on Todd Monken's staff. Again, Schefter has it too. Jim Schwartz sent the Browns a resignation letter this morning. He is now, and Schefter says he's now likely to sit out the season.
Well, he's under contract.
Yeah.
I said yesterday, I thought the Browns should do the right thing and let him out of the contract.
Right.
He
was determined to not be here.
I'm not at all surprised.
Yeah.
I talked to someone who knows Jim well, who had just spoken to him, who told me I would drop dead if Jim walked back in that building. He didn't think there was any chance of it happening. Jim had made up his mind and said his goodbyes, so I'm not terribly surprised this is how it went. It's a loss. It's not irreplaceable. It is kind of wild that this is where we landed on this, given how hard they were pushing Jim on all the candidates who were coming in the door.
Yeah.
And then they lost him anyway. But, now you got to look for a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, listen, in the end, the Browns had to hire. We could question their ability to make decisions, but their decision brought them to Todd Monken as the best head coach. And that's more important than the defensive coordinator. You got to have the right head coach. So they thought Todd Monken was the best head coach. Thus, you deal with any circumstances that come or ramifications that come from it. And this is an unfortunate ramification. The Browns, you could say whatever you want. You could call him a baby. You could say they don't need him. Here's something that I don't think, if you're being fair, nobody could disagree with. The Browns would have been better off if Jim Schwartz had not been angry and he had just stayed as the defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's no way to deny that.
Yeah.
So don't make excuses. You can kill them all you want. Don't pretend this doesn't matter at all after 3 years of saying it was the best hire that the Browns have ever made.
Yes, you are 1,000%.
But in the end, you
right.
had if you wanted this head coach, you had to take.
One of my complaints with how the Browns do things is they just build everything on a spreadsheet without taking into account human emotion.
That is correct.
And that's how you wind up with a Dylan and Shador situation. That's how you wind up with Deshaun hanging around this roster for all of these years.
Yeah.
It's how you wind up with all these guys that have allegations of violence and sexual assault in the locker room. And this is how you wind up in a situation like this. So we'll just put him, what's the big deal? We'll just make Jim the defensive coordinator. Yeah, we'll bring him in for an interview. We'll bring him all the way to the end.
Right.
And then I'll give him the job. He'll be fine with that.
Yeah, right.
They don't take into account the human emotion of a locker room element. I wonder what Jim's reaction would have been had they told him, you are not a candidate to be the head coach.
Right, if it would have been different.
Maybe it wouldn't have been. We may have been in the same spot.
Yeah, right.
He may have said, well, why do I not even get a look?
Yeah.
How are you hiring that guy and I don't even get a look?
Yeah.
So maybe we wind up at the same spot anyway, but we'll never know.
Monken said at his press conference on, was it Tuesday? On Tuesday, whenever it was.
Yeah.
That he anticipated most of the defensive staff staying in place regardless of what happened with Jim Schwartz, right?
Yeah, well, especially if he's going to, I don't know if it's retire or sit out the year.
But whatever, but he said a lot of
it's not like they had it. If he had gone somewhere else, he could have taken some with him potentially.
So
but
if they are able to keep the rest of the staff or the majority of the defensive staff in place, I'm going to assume, and this is just a guess, that they're going to promote one of the guys that were on staff to the defensive coordinator position.
Right.
Because this entire defense was built around what Jim Schwartz wanted to do. Jason pointed out on Monday, they drafted Mason Graham 5th overall, defensive tackle, because he fit Jim Schwartz's system. Devin Bush was a guy who thrived in Jim Schwartz's system. Myles Garrett, who we'll talk about in the next topic, just won his second DPOY unanimously because partly Jim Schwartz's defensive system and scheme. So a lot of the pieces on this roster fit what Jim Schwartz wanted to do. And we talked about Brian Flores as a head coach candidate, and he runs a different defensive system. And all that, if you're not going to bring Jim Schwartz back, to me it doesn't make sense to go bring in a defensive coordinator that runs a completely different scheme.
Yeah, they're not going to do that.
Because it's so late in the process and you have so many pieces of the puzzle already there to fit the defense that Jim Schwartz set up. So my best guess would be Jason Tarver, who's the linebackers coach, would get promoted, and he's spoken highly about across the league. I don't have nearly as many NFL connects as Jason does, but anyone who ever mentions Jason Tarver speaks about this dude like he has a chance to be a really, really, really good defensive coordinator, maybe even a head coach at some point. So that'd be my best guess on who gets the promotion.
I don't think any Browns assistant coach has ever become a head coach, right?
Somebody pointed out Lindy Infante to me. I think I missed him, and that might have been not on the defensive side. In the '80s, side, I think Lindy Infante left the offensive coordinator role to be the Packers head coach.
To go directly
from one to the other. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that that a lot of these guys will stay. You wonder if any of them resign as well. Probably not.
Probably not.
They don't have Jim Schwartz money. Probably.
Well, where are they going to go?
Or they can't follow Jim Schwartz.
Jim's not taking a job.
Yeah.
So
it seems that way.
I do think that they'll probably at least make a couple interviews with external guys.
But this is a loss, guys. There's no way around it.
Absolutely.
This is a loss. It's something you have to deal with. It's not the end of the world, but the Browns were better off with Jim Schwartz as their defensive coordinator.
That's why they pushed him so hard on everybody.
Yeah, that's right. So. And it's just, in the end, I guess it doesn't matter, who's to blame. It's easy for me to assume the Browns are to blame here and not Jim Schwartz. I know some people want to blame Jim Schwartz. It doesn't really matter how you got here.
I don't think you have to have a good guy and a bad guy in this. I think everybody shares in a little bit of the.
Yeah.
No, I don't think Jim handled this well at all. But ultimately, I would let him out. I would let him out of the contract.
Yeah.
We could agree Jim may not have handled this the right way. If all the reporting in the search process is accurate, then I don't think the Browns handled this the right way either. I think there could be two wrong sides here and not necessarily a right one. And I think that's kind of just the reality of a guy in Jim Schwartz who, I don't know him at all, but it's a prideful guy.
Yeah.
Wears his emotions on his sleeves. You could see that even during the games.
Yeah.
And clearly felt either disrespected, betrayed, choose whatever word you want, by how this whole process was handled.
I would have had less respect for him if he would have made this whole big stink and then come back.
Yeah.
I got respect for the guy. He was pissed off, and he was done. Yeah. And the money didn't matter. He gave up the money.
Jim has what you call FU money.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the spot that everybody wants to be in one day. What's the scene? What movie is it with John Goodman when he's talking about invest in a car and put your money in the bank, and then if somebody pisses you off, tell them F you and leave. It's a great clip.
He's the money shark with Wahlberg.
You know what I'm talking about?
I'll find the movie name for you. I don't know.
You remember? I doubt we can play the clip on the air. It's some cursing in it.
Yeah.
But go look. It's exactly what Jim just did. It's exactly what he just did. I have respect for it, too.
Yeah, that's what I was saying all week is like a lot of people thought, well, what's he going to do? What's he going to do? Well, if you have enough money, then you could tell the boss to stick it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he did here. So,
one more thing on Schwartz real quick. And he did a terrific job in his 3 years here as DC. He did a terrific job. I want to make sure.
Oh, boy, now you're about to insult him.
No, just... Yeah. Was it him or was it the fact that Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward are two elite players? Like how many defensive coordinators do you think could have came in and gotten at least similar level production from a defensive unit that was loaded with talent? I know a lot of this
he gets a ton of credit. Obviously, Denzel and Myles are great, but they were always great. And the Browns, Browns had one good year with those guys with Joe Woods, but the whole time Jim Schwartz is here, they were 24, they were decent.
But 23
and 25, they were very good.
23 was the splits. Like my point is, I don't think the Browns' defense was as good as some people.
Well, you were the one giving all these crazy stats about it. The best ever, best.
I gotta find something.
Let's see. Yes, we all agree with that. But overall, through 3 years, it was very good.
Yes.
With two superstars, and you had guys play well that nobody heard of. J.O.K. looked like he was going to be out of the league, and then he became a good player. What's his name? Oh, my God. Schlesinger. Everybody thought it was a reach taking him.
I mean,
he was a superstar as a rookie.
Devin Bush.
Devin Bush had been a bust.
Yeah.
Malik Collins seemed like he was finished. Ronnie Hickman was a nobody. Who's the corner they traded for?
Tyson Campbell.
Tyson Campbell.
Yeah.
That guy was like, well, whatever.
Once again, I'm not taking away from what Jim Schwartz
did.
He did a good job.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I think the overall counting stats of this defense in 23 and this year, which made it look like they were a top 5 defense, I don't think they were that good.
They were a top 5 defense. I disagree with you.
They were the number 2 defense in yards allowed.
It doesn't matter. They were a top 5 defense this past year and in 23. Considering how bad the offense is,
they were a top 5 defense in 23.
Yes,
despite the home road split.
Yes, 100%. They were top 5. Could they have been 6th? I don't know. They were in the conversation of top 5. Certainly were top 5 this year. I mean, what they had to overcome with the most pathetic offense we've ever seen. They had so much pressure on him, and they for the most part played well. So he deserves a lot of credit. Obviously, Myles deserves a lot of credit. Denzel Ward, they're superstars. did he help them? Sure. Would they have been great without Jim Schwartz? Yeah, but I don't know about some of these other guys.
I mean, that's true.
So
that's
will
true.
the Browns defense still be good next year?
Yes,
they got a lot of talent.
Yeah.
Do I think there might be a little step back? Yes. But even if Schwartz were here, I thought there might be a little step back.
It goes back and
Defense
forth,
ebbs
yeah.
and flows more than offense.
Well, 23,
offense
24,
is just
25.
based on the quarterback, mostly.
Well, look at 23, 24,
Right,
25.
exactly. So, but this is a hit. You can pretend it's not a hit.
I'm not saying it's not a hit.
Yeah.
Like, it certainly
But
hurts.
there are going to be a lot of fans trying
Yeah.
to play this off as if it's
No,
nothing.
it absolutely hurts. I
Yeah.
just think he's more replaceable than I think we're giving him credit for.
Well, everybody's replaceable.
If he was that irreplaceable, they would have made him
Made him
the
the head coach. Absolutely.
Exactly. That's my point.
All right.